Excuse me. All right. Good morning. Sorry, we're running a few minutes behind. This morning, we're going to continue on in our class about how to grow the church here in Stafford, and we're going to look at the chapter in our, well, I guess it's really in my textbook, and y'all's kind of following along, called "Suffer the Little Children," and I think it's a great one because I think one of the things that we recognize, no matter the size church it is do they have kids? You know, and you kind of put a little asterisk next to that church's name. For example, I was preaching in Mississippi, and a small church of around 50. And every time someone would come by, they say, "Yeah, but y'all got kids." That's great. I was in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, which is in Chattanooga area. Again, a church that was around, well, we were around 40, 50 when I got there. We got to about 100 when I left. But the first thing everyone said to me was, "Yeah, y'all are small, but y'all got kids." And, I think everyone recognizes the importance about having young families around. And we all recognize the importance of having children around. And I think sometimes there is an undue burden on some children that may be beyond the control. That sometimes the church may look negatively at certain families. We had one family that had a child that was very, very, very autistic, and he would just blurt out in the middle of the sermon and all kind of stuff, and that's fine. And we had a lady who was an old lady, old battle axe kind of lady, and she would walk right up to them every time and just give them some kind of a remark about something. About it. Doesn't he know yet? He's 3 or 4 years old. Doesn't he know how to behave in church yet? And doesn't he know how to do things better? And aren't you a better parent at home? All kind of stuff. That's very disheartening. And so, for that one, I made it a public point to recognize the family and to express appreciation for them being in church. That's where they ought to be at. Another family we had whenever I was a missionary in New Zealand had the lady had 2 kids. She was a visitor, but she was deaf. She could not hear her kids. Therefore, her kids didn't want to be heard by her. And so the kids ran kind of wild, and we had several people there start to try to go on to them about the kids and say, "Those kids are wild." And I said, "But they're in church. Let them be in church." And we got into some really vicious men's meetings because of those kids. And every time I'd say, "Yeah, but they're in church. Let them be in church. If they're going to be wild for a minute, that's fine. But let them be in church. That's where they ought to be at." And so sometimes I think maybe because of culture, maybe because of our own upbringing, that we say that you have to fit our mold as a child, or else you are not accepted at this church. And that's how some families may feel. I'm not saying that's how they feel here, but I'm saying this as a very generalized statement. So it's no wonder then that Jesus would use children as one of his primary examples about how to be honest and how to be complete with their thought. And they didn't hide their emotion, and they didn't have to, you have to worry about whether a child will like you or not, because they're going to tell you if they are. You have to worry about whether a child can trust you, because a child will tell you, or they will show you, "I cannot trust you," and they'll kind of get back and hold their arms and do all of the very typical behaviors, and you can tell that child's shy. A child's very true to himself and herself. And so when it comes down to the church, I think that the church should be open to children. And that's a very important thing. I want us to look at a few verses, mainly from Matthew, and we'll just kind of go down the list here. The first one is Matthew 18. Let's look at that one together, if you don't mind, please. Matthew 18, and we're going to look at verses 2 through 6, and let's see what Christ has to say about some children here. Matthew 18, verses 2 through 6. And notice this. Then Jesus called a little child to him and set him in the midst of them. Now, some of your rather liberal interpreters suggest this is the son of Peter. I don't know if that's the case. No one knows that. But that's just a food for thought. And they said, assuredly I say to you, unless you are converted and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself as this little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever receives one little child like this in my name receives me. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the depth of the sea. So, what do we see about Jesus' attitude toward children in general in verses 3 through 6 here of Matthew 18? What do we notice?
We can learn from children.
Yeah, you can learn from children. Okay. What else do we see here? Does God require that we be eloquent speakers? And does God require that we have a very good set of skills and that we're very specialized individuals? Or does he just require that we be like little children? Childlike, the honesty, right? Childlike spirit there. Yeah. What you got, Horace? I feel like I'm really far away.
Well,
Maybe I'm not. Go ahead, Horace.
I kind of see it's kind of the way I relate to a lot of things, reflect, and where it says, it tells us to become like children. It says that if we become like children, unless we become like that, that's the only way we can enter the children, into the kingdom of God, you know. Because it says, except we be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of God. In verse 4, whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is great in the kingdom of heaven. Okay, now from my own experience, those of us who raised kids, have kids, you watch them develop from birth to where, as they graduate through time, they overcome a lot of the innocence that within them from exposure.
Yeah.
And that's what's meant here, because sometime after we mature as adults, a lot of the things that causes us to have problems when we face situations is our attitude to accept our faults to what we might have done to cause the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And see, the children is not that they're innocent. They, most of the time, even when you talk to them when they're young, they can convict you sometimes with the way they respond.
Sure.
They're so, they like sponges.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And see, you can even, for kids, you can even gauge the environment they're in from the way they react, because a lot of times that's what they do. Parents, a lot of parents, and people don't see that, but kids, they watch the people that they're around closer than we expect them to, because sometimes when you interact back with them, as they get older, they'll tell you some things about yourself you didn't even pay attention to.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I got two of those.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
See, that's what we have to look at. that really is going on in front of us. We have to understand that, see, a lot of times that's what would cause a lot of people that struggle with becoming Christians is some of the things that they haven't been able to overcome because of the way that they've either been beaten down by circumstances, you know, they haven't been able to deal with the consequences to help them clear their mind and which direction they're trying to take. Because there's so many things that can cause people to get stagnated to where they're not good at making what you would call conscious critical decisions.
Sure. Yeah, I think you're entirely right. I think some of the saddest kids that we've had to work with have been ones that feel responsible for their parents. Ones that say, you know, I know mom or dad or both can't do it, so I want to save up money and help them. I thought that's very sad because the parent should look after the child. The child should have the burden to look after the parent, especially as a little bitty 5, 6, 7-year-old. They shouldn't be having those kind of thought processes. So how can I take care of my mom and dad because they're making bad choices? That's a very sad child.
Sometimes we the parents don't have tendency to be listening to the child.
Yeah.
That's what you said. The child, in that if you say the child is living, he's being kind of mature. Or the person
Well, that's what you would think. He's just trying, or she might be just trying to put on a strong face, but they're still children. You know, it is very unfortunate that those kind of kids, and all those kids come from drug families. I know that, or families that have drugs in them, and they feel responsible for taking get them out because, you know, they might fall over unconscious. Well, what am I going to do now with them unconscious? I got to feed myself and all that kind of stuff. I got to wash my own clothes, and yeah, I mean, and we was, man, look how advanced they are. It's like, yeah, but look at how innocent they're no longer being because they have a whole world of exposure that they should not have to work with. They should not be there. It is interesting because, you know, when you think about children, of course, I think we fit honesty pretty good here. Also, I think we may think about the idea of generosity. You know, you don't have to convince a child to give you all that's in their pocket. You know, you say, well, you know, we're going to do this, or you say, well, you know, you go to a store and you say, I want to buy you some food or whatever. And okay, I'll do that for you. And they may say, well, you know, what about so-and-so? I don't have money for them. Well, I have it in my pocket. Okay, pull it out. Like, okay, well, let's figure it out then. I think we look at children from the idea of just general faith in general. Because, you know, with adults, you have to really, it depends on the adult. I know this is, again, a very generalized statement here. But I feel like most adults, you have to really kind of sit down with and really kind of go through some facts and see if, you know, kind of in a Bible study, if you acknowledge authority of the Bible, then you have to go through and explain, do you believe this or not, and really kind of go down to the brass tacks of everything. That's fine. Not going to be against that at all. But do you have to deal with a child? You have to go through a child and say, now, do you accept the Bible as the authority for life? Well, they of course they do, automatically. There's no question in their mind about it. In fact, you know, we've had talks with several of my kids about how they make comments that they want to go to heaven now. It's like, yeah, but people will miss you. You know, I want to go to heaven now. Well, yeah, we know. You know, and they love going to church. They love being in church. And you know, with adults, man, you know, I think because of those kind of things is what will drive some adults to get to church too. If you get the kids, you get the parents. Because, man, those kids want to be in church. Now, you know, and even if, you know, because I know that some places are kind of boring. And you might use the word drabby. You know, kind of gloomy. You know, everyone there's old and nothing's happening for any kid. And just like, Rrr. But, man, if you show a kid attention, they'll be in church. That's it. You don't got to make this immaculate, you know, space for them and everything. I mean, of course, it would help and it would not ever hinder any of that. But man, if a kid just feels like they can be in church and be around others who like them, and that's where they want to be at, and they love listening to God and hearing the Bible stories, and they love the whole thing. I think that's how God designed a child. I think God designed a child to automatically want to be more faith-minded. I think that's pretty phenomenal. I think, and that's the thing I think that happens is that they might be inclined to it, but then if they get a bad parent and say, no, we don't believe that here. We don't believe this Bible here. No, we're atheists. We're agnostic. We don't believe that stuff. Did you know that right now there is a statistic going out? I think it was done 2 years ago. I want to say Reuters did it, maybe Gallup. Anyway, and it said that that the generation in the 40s and 50-year-olds is largely going into more of a modernistic mentality. My truth is my truth, and you have your truth, and more of a relativism. It's kind of like a cycle, because you have that same group in kind of the 60, 70-year-olds a little bit to some degree from when the whole movement was coming out back in the 50s and 60s. And it kind of goes in a cycle. And what's interesting now, though, is that a lot of children are bucking the system, and they're saying, even though I know mom and dad are not for religion or faith, I want to be in tune with that. And so there's actually a resurgence coming up within the younger groups, younger than my age group, within the younger groups who desire very strongly to be in church. And they desire to skip over mom and dad and go into church going grandma and grandpa. And they say, I accept them as my examples. And I know that my mom and dad just fell off the boat and they're doing who knows what. But I want to do what the right thing is. And I see over here that these people are peaceful and loving and forgiving and quiet and whatever else they may say about you. And I want to be like them. I know that my parents aren't doing what they should do, but I want to be like my grandma and my grandpa because they're doing the right thing. And so there's a resurgence coming up based on the grandma and the grandpa, which I think is great. I think that's a phenomenal thing. I feel like, we may think, they're lost because look at who the parents are. The parents don't want to be in church, therefore they have no hope. Well, the resurgence, according to data, is there's an extreme amount of hope there. And so we can't take it away. Okay, I'm going to get Ted and I'll get Horace. What you got, man? Ted first, and I'll get Horace.
You said that, it makes me think about, I know some people, but a lot of people, like you said, the younger kind of like generation, they're raised by the grandparents because
that's true.
The one or two parent may not be there, or they had to step in because the parent wasn't.
That's true.
Capable to take care of it.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a very big trend. Yeah. What you got, Horace?
Same thing you talking about. I was raised in church, everybody knows. But what's so unique about our family, it was huge. It still.
Who's bigger, yours or the Crosby's?
I don't know.
Hey, Crosby's big family, man.
Okay.
I know Taylor's good size. I'm messing with you. I know. I know. Bigger than mine, so it's either way it's good.
I got nieces and nephews in their 50s. And I got some great nieces and nephews who are becoming adults.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I see has been a encouragement to our family is from the way we were able to impact the kids that were there for us to raise. See, I didn't have it, but I was home.
Yeah.
And raising them. They went on with their life, but the majority of them are in the church.
Mm-hmm.
As a family, we can compliment our parents and thank God for blessing the family. just like I can use my own example. When I was literally there growing up, a lot of the strictness I had to adapt to, I didn't agree with it.
Yeah.
And even the way my dad was about us attending church. Back then, as we would call it, it was like camp. You didn't have any options.
Yeah. Yeah, you were dragged to church? Yeah. Yeah.
When you get grown, you can say you got grown. Once you got grown, you had your own options. But until you
Well, I mean, I rule if you're grown, if you're in the house, you're going to go to church. No matter how old you are.
No, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I think.
No, that's how my dad's parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what he said. You're grown when you're grown. We got in the house.
Okay.
As long as you're in the house. And that's
They're my rules, man.
That was the difference.
Yeah.
Like I say, I like how some of my brothers and sisters raised my nieces and nephews.
Mm.
Now, some of them, for a while, struggled spiritually.
Mm.
Because they did, they went through their faith.
Yeah.
But one day, I say, most of them now, they're faithful.
Yeah.
They're faithful.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
This is a part of what we studied today about. He's teaching on. We should suffer the children, but we as individuals raising kids, we got to do our part.
Yeah.
Because we really don't know how dear, and that's what I have to explain to my nephew. I say, man, some of your peers' home environment is different from yours now. So
Definitely.
you have to learn how to weed around what you see, what you hear, not you come.
Yeah. Definitely. And, if you were to look, even inside of our own numbers here, about how many people's grandkids, and I mean, the young ones that are around the area, I mean, I know that y'all do really good about this. But, if we brought in everybody's and I know Juanita's grandkids would come a lot too, which I was very happy to see them too. But, man, if we brought in everybody's grandkids, we'd have a big old group. I mean, we'd have a big old group. I was surprised we probably had 30 or 40 kids showing up. I mean, we can do it. Who was? Flower, yeah. Yeah. I mean, but, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not like we have to find these kids somewhere in the woods, I mean, we got them in the home already. It's just about getting them into the church. I think that's very important. And man, if we had that big of a group show up, I mean, what would you do with them? Man, I bet you figure something out, wouldn't you? And so I think it's great. And that's also why it's important that we do have a certain mentality to accept these kids, even if there's any kind of noise, they're still accepted. I know that one time my wife with Quincy made one noise, and my wife left, and she was fully embarrassed because we had a guy call us that night and say that he lost his train of thought doing a prayer, and it was ridiculous that my son made a noise. You believe that? So those kind of things, you got to watch out for those kind of things. And those kind of things can be discouraging to the family. And so you have to be very mindful then about how we view a child. A child, I saw a little slogan on the back of somebody's car, and it says, if my child be quiet, I can't come. Kids are going to make noise. Now, I do understand that there is a limit to the noise. I totally understand that. Now, if you have a child having an absolute just meltdown, I understand they can go out. I get that. If a child makes a little noise, or if they sing in a song and they don't stop singing for a minute, I think it's okay. I think it all depends on your perspective, because I promise you this. If that child wasn't here, you would wish that they were. And you'd say, a bunch of old gray heads over here, I wish that child was here. But man, when they are here, well, they can't be like a child. And so I think it's very important that that we accept a child in the spirit of Jesus, how he would accept a child. And he's saying a child is going to be your example in how to behave and think and be generous and have faith and want to go to heaven with all their heart. And that's a child. So a few things. Let's look at a few more verses. Let's go to Matthew 19 while we're in Matthew. And we're going to go through Matthew and then have one in Mark. Matthew 19, verses 13 and 14. And let's look at this thing. Matthew 19, verses 13 and 14. And by the way, I always tell everybody, if there's a problem with a child and they come to me while we're going there, I always tell them, this is not a fight you ever win. Because when you begin picking on somebody's kids, you've lost the war. I mean, that family is gone if they hear about this critique. It doesn't matter if they're right, wrong, indifferent. They're gone. So that's just how it goes. This kind of things you have to be very careful to tread those waters. And if you do, you better do it real tactful, because it could lose someone's soul, really. Be very, very, very careful. All right, Matthew 19, verses 13 and 14. And here's what Christ says here. It says, then little children were brought to him that he might put his hands on them and pray. But what did the church do to him? They rebuked who? Who's the them? The disciples rebuked them. Who's them? The children. The children. Okay. So evidently our tradition of going after the kids is not new to us. But Jesus said, now notice the contrary thought. But Jesus said, they said they can't come. Don't bring them anywhere near here. This is the master's place. But Jesus said, let the little children come to me and do not. What's the word? Forbid. Is that in everyone's Bibles? Do not forbid?
And forbid him not to come unto me, for such is the kingdom of heaven.
Okay. So don't forbid a child from coming, in this case, for us, coming to church and learning about Jesus. They are allowed to be there. Another verse, Matthew 21, verses 15 and 16. That's another interesting one. Matthew 21, verses 15 and 16. Says, and when the chief priests and scribes saw the wonderful things that he did, and the children were the ones that were crying out in the temple, what were they saying? From the mouth of a child, they were saying what? Hosanna to the Son of David. From the mouth of a child, they recognized Jesus as the Messiah. And what was their behavior? What do they respond with? Were they happy about it? The Bible says they were, as they say in the South, indignant or indignant. They kind of drop a few syllables there. And so, and said to him, do you hear what these children are saying? And then Jesus said to them, and he quotes Psalm 8, verse 2, yes, I do hear. Have you not read, though? Have you never read? Out of the mouths of babes and nursing infants, you have perfected praise. Then he left them. Children acknowledged Christ. They were crying in the street or in the temple, Hosanna to the Son of David. And it made the adults around upset. It's interesting that a child is able to see the positives when the adults only see a negative. If you were to look at pictures and videos of refugee camps where there are children present. One thing that pops up often in those pictures and videos when a child's present is you will see children playing outside. The adults might be in their rooms, upset and discouraged and in gloom and despair, but the child and their friends can be outside playing. They might be outside singing a song for all we know. And here the adults are inside of a refugee camp, and they're just saying, I'm detained again. Here the child is over here playing, singing, having a good old time. They know where they're at. I mean, they understand where they're at, but they decide, I'm still going to be a child. I'm still going to find something positive in this thing somewhere. I think it's kind of what's happening right here. They know where they're at. They know that who's in charge. They probably even tell you what the guy looks like. That guy over there with the big old mustache and the big beard and the mean-looking eyes. He's the guy that my dad said, watch out for. Okay, that's probably one of the chief priests. Who knows? Watch out for that guy. But yet, what are they going to do? They're still crying out, Hosanna to the Son of David. They know where they're at. They're in the temple. They know where they're at. But when they see Jesus, they can't help but talk about it. And so I think it's phenomenal that Christ here is saying yes, and he again is going to take the side of the child over the adult. He's going to say, yes, but have you never read by the mouth of the babes? Well, again, I think that they weren't happy about that either. Let's look at another verse. Mark 9, verses 36 and 37. Mark 9, verses 36 and 37. Notice this. And before I kind of hit on this already, but we'll do it again. Then he took a little child and set him in the midst of them. And when he had taken him in his arms, he said to him, whoever receives one of these little children in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives not me, but him who also sent me. And this is in the same section, in a parallel of Matthew 18, 2 through 6. But the extra detail here that's not mentioned in that one is that this child was in his arms. This child was not kept at arm's length, but was rather, you see the imagery there, Christ may be, we may think that he may be on his knees looking at a child with his arm wrapped around the child. That might be a kind of imagery you might see here. And he's saying, if you accept me, you accept the one who sent me, and if you receive this child, you receive me. And so he's trying to express to them that greatness isn't from your own adequacy, who you are as yourself, but you learn it from the heart of a child. And the idea of who sent me. You ever give a child an errand to do? And sometimes we have this fight in my house sometimes when I won't know what's happening, and my wife will tell Cubby normally, can you go and do this for me? I don't know what's happening. And he's going to go do something here that he shouldn't be doing, but he went and asked his mom, and she said, yeah, go ahead. I need this anyways, whatever. And then I get on to him. I say, you shouldn't be in there. You know that's, where short things are, whatever it is. You know that better. And then he says, yeah, but mom told me to do it. Oh, did she? I'm going to go ask mom. And she said that. Did you tell him to do that? Yeah, I did. Okay, well, he's fine to do it then. Because he understood that it's not him that's doing it. It's because he's there out of mom sent me to do this. I'm going to do this job because that's what mom wants me to do. That's very important. And so wouldn't it be nice if we had that same kind of mentality, that I'm going to be a Christian. I'm going to be active. I'm going to be faithful because that's what God's telling me to do inside of the Bible. Not because that's what I want to do. That's my idea. It's because God says what you should do, and I'm going to follow after what God says. Right? Wouldn't that be nice? And so I think we get the imagery there. Before I move on, is there anything else in any of these verses right here before I move into some quotes from this little book here? Anything else? Great. You got something, Craig?
We kind of underestimate the ability of children sometimes
Yeah.
to comprehend, because they don't know exactly which way to go, but they're going to go in the direction that their mind takes them.
Yeah.
We're here to mold them when they do that. I'm thinking about my grandson, he's 4. But he'll learn all 4 verses of the song and memorize it because he wants to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we try not to, push him one way or the other. We let him do what he can do. And I think it's because he sees that what we do, and he kind of imitates it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's great. I think it's great to have that for sure. I think that child's on the way to heaven if ever, faster than he would be without you there. Yeah. Yeah. Very important. Yeah, we have to be the right people for them to follow too. Yeah. Because just because you're in that spot doesn't mean that you're the right one they should have. So we have to be the right one that they should always have. And then that's our burden to deal with, not theirs. Even though they may call us out on it, it's still our burden to deal with, not their burden. Okay. Here's one of the quotes that is from the book. I thought it was good. Inside the book, he's having a discussion with one of his elders, and the elder told him on several occasions that I want you to remember that to build a great church, you must start with the children. You can't do much with us old people. We are set in our ways and not prone to get much, too much get up and go. However, remember, you can teach the children, and let us do everything we can to provide a good teaching program and a good Sunday school that will absolutely be excellent in every way. Another quote, if we do not take care of them, immediately it will be too late. So that was, I think, a very important one as well. Another quote here. It is so wonderful to see a classroom with proper sized chairs that is bright, cheerful, and happy in appearance, with bulletin boards that blaze with enthusiasm and the joy of the Christian religion. Then he gives suggestions here about the Thursday school or a Mother's Day Out program was one way to bring in children, as well as reach out to young mothers, which I have advocated for that for years. Also, I found this one to be a good one. He also advocates for having an attendant nursery for the child to be left with a trusted adult and let the parents worship. I think that's also fine. I found this one to be pretty good, though, because normally, and all that we do is fine. Now, with a child, with a baby coming in, we'll do a baby shower, and that's all fine and wonderful. I'm not against that at all. I like the extra step he goes here with it, and that he says that we do all that stuff too, but we go the extra step, and with the arrival of every new baby, they announce from the pulpit, put the bulletin, and they even go to the home and pay a visit as a leadership with the elders and the preacher. If it is a boy, we bring the new boy a blue New Testament and a pink one for the girls. And then we have a prayer of the family, and then we leave them and offer, and then we go back to church, the building, and we make arrangements prior to them getting there for that new child inside of the classrooms. That way right when they get there on the Sunday, they're ready to go in, no having to finagle around, that kind of thing. I thought that's pretty good. You're getting it ready for them. And then another thing here I thought was pretty good was the point I'm trying to make is simply this. A church with a balanced program that expects to grow ought to go all out for the children. I like the story of 2 city boys who visited the grandmother on the farm. One day they were trying to get the old family cow in the barn. After about an hour, they were ready to give up. A young country boy was sitting on the fence, and he began to laugh at them and told them that it was really funny that two big boys could not get one old cow into the barn. The city boys said that they wanted to see him get down here and do it, and they reminded him that if he did not, they were going to give him a first-class whipping. The country boy said, well, get out of the lot. It's no problem at all. And so he went in the lot and ignored the cow, and he took hold of her little calf and put it in the barn. And here came the cow, lickety-split. And when he took care of the calf, he gave the greatest incentive to the world to the cow to come in. And so the idea here is how many thousands have been won to Christ and his church, and how many more thousands strengthened because the church was very sensitive to little children. And then he ends with this verse, and we've already hit on it already. Suffer little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. I think it's very important that we do not ever denigrate or degrade a child. We accept and make it a place where they can come in and learn and grow and enjoy faith as we would have ourselves. I think it's very important to make that kind of an atmosphere for them. I'm going to stop. That is the end of the class. I appreciate y'all's comments very much. And we will have worship here in a few minutes. Thank you very much.